When I was younger, um, I used to see this quote a lot that art is political. I actually did not get the real meaning of this before because I feel like this was something that I just understood on the surface. Now that I've grown up, I understand the dynamics of society, how it works, how the system runs. I can fully grasp this thought that art is political. I would like to discuss multiple aspects of this, starting with the fact that how contemporary art, which often is denoted as modern art, is highly criticized. And the criticism is never positive, it is always negative. And I think this is where my thought stemmed from. I think this is where I started thinking, like, why do we hate contemporary art so much? Why do we hate performance art so much? And why do we constantly regulate art so much? Because when I see art being posted online, I don't see enough criticism for realism as an art form. People always love it, but when you look into it, I think a lot of times it lacks creativity. I'm not saying realism is bad, but what I'm saying is a lot of people, when they say they make art, a lot of times they don't put any thought into it. And for realism as well, I feel like people happen to have lesser criticism, even if it does not meet the point of realism, which is making the art look realistic according to their standard. But performance art, even if it's good, people tend to pretend to not understand it. Everyone can have their preference of what kind of art they like. It's totally valid. There would be good and bad art, but anything that you create is art. Anything that you create, that you want to create, is still art. People would be pointing out very specific videos where someone is like slapping dough or clay, and it's like I personally, a lot of times, would like not understand it. However, when you think about it, you can find symbolism in it. And that's funny because maybe the artist didn't even think about what you thought of, but anything that provokes a thought is art. And I think that's beautiful. However, we are constantly made to think that you have to reach a certain standard to be an artist. You have to reach a certain standard to make art. You have to do a specific type of art to be called an artist. And I think that is a way to restrain us. If you are an artist, you are free to think, you are creative. And that somehow becomes dangerous. If a lot of people, if a whole crowd becomes big thinkers, it becomes problematic. And I think that's what is becoming a barrier for people who are in power. So I feel like this whole drama of criticizing contemporary art, calling it modern art, and becomes like once a few years, and and people in the comments of such videos would be like, what has happened, why isn't there good art? And they just don't consider this to be art. And I just find it to be so sad. Like, so, so sad. And it's so hard to explain it to people that art is not always equal to effort and it's not always equal to aesthetics. Art can be anything, like I said before, anything that you want. And that is the beauty of art. Who's stopping you? Who made the rules for what you create? Anything can be that. And that also goes around the way you present yourself. That could also be art. And that is where I want to delve into fashion. Like, there are these rules of fashion, like, people say that, and they are like, this is not fashion, that is not fashion. But self expression is fashion, is art. And why do we fear when people are extra with their fashion? They want to spend some time making themselves look cool. Why do we want to fit people in boxes? And this is obviously, like, people keep throwing this code that you don't want to fit in a box, and a lot of people have that in their bios, and then they would be out there complaining, like, is this fashion? Like, why are you criticizing this just because you don't identify with it? And we have always been told to restrain it. We are always been told that extremism in fashion is a rich people thing. You are not allowed to do it. And I think it all stems from the class divide. Every bit of it stems from it. The more people find individuality, the more it's harder to control them. The more it's harder to form unions, the more it's far harder to unite people. And I think that this is where, like, this is one of our biggest weaknesses as people. I think people need to realize that they are important, and not in a way that I am better than everyone else or something like that, but people need to realize that I have a purpose, and these people on top, which I sound very red pilled right now, but when I say these people on top, I really mean, like, these billionaires who are living off of the poor, who can literally solve world hunger and poverty and doing nothing, but exploiting us even more, causing harm to our earth. They're just sitting there. So obviously, this is wrong. Like, why are they, just because they were born in those families, just because they are born in these abusive families, get all the privilege and we don't? They are our abusers, and I think very less people understand that. They realistically do not understand it. We should not be working this hard, and this is not coming from someone who doesn't want to get a job. In the current scenario, I do need a job. I do need to make a living. It is sad though. I should not be living my life like this. No one should have been. All these cities, like, the more you think about it, the more you realize it's all interconnected. All these cities that have been built, they have been built in this at the stake of ruining our earth. And these cities, these factories, these were to monetize the people on the top. And these clustered settlements were made for the factory workers, for the workers of these owned companies to live. And we have to compensate on our living standards for their living, and in turn also compensate on our living, if that makes sense. Like, we have to give extra work into this as well as compromise more, while these people on top don't even work 1% of it. Like, they keep complaining that people need to work harder when they themselves never work. They never work hard. They have been served everything on a silver platter. We live a life no different than what our ancestors have lived to a big extent. They lived under these kings, these dictators, and I don't think we live a very different life than them. All of this is so sad. Like, we are compromising on seeing this beautiful earth. We are compromising on so many things to work on, like in these jobs. And whenever we think about taking a day off, taking a leave, they, whenever we think of a vacation, we don't imagine these cities. We want to be out in the nature. They are fucking up this nature as well. Everything is being fucked. We are stripped off of our individuality. However, we have to consider these people as individuals, these peoples who we are supposed to respect, but why? And the way they are ruining the minds of the youth. It's so sad that these people are idolizing these awful billionaires, and they're served a dream that if they do whatever they say, it's going to let them have a life just as much luxurious as them, which is all a lie, because you can't. You need generational wealth for that. So, coming back to the topic of being creative, expressing yourself, it's we're being constrained from it all the time. Some people say that then like what is the point? Like, then these people would just waste their lives away. But aren't we also wasting our lives away and like barely meeting the ends, like barely living our lives, not ever having fun, being discriminated because there is so much divide and so much hate? Like, aren't we doing the same thing? Like, all of this is so sad. And you know, something that really bothers me is how self expression is such a big taboo. Every time I see these political leaders and religious leaders, they always dress up in quotation normal, like the stereotype. However, behind closed doors, they would be doing the most disgusting things known to mankind. They're big abusers, many of them, and we always have to like see them like these pure people, and their purity is also expressed through the self-expression, and which is not really just there. They are just in quotation super confident and motivational or something like that, expressing themselves. However, they try so hard to wear the sheep's clothes, being a wolf, if that makes sense. Like, every time I feel like I've seen this before. I don't really remember, but like some religious, like not religious, some political leader was out there wearing uh not wearing the stereotypical clothes he's supposed to wear, and he's like criticized for it because why didn't you wear that? Like, they all have to follow, they all have to copy the styles, and like it's sad, honestly. Like, that's so sad. I don't think that's like, shouldn't the person we're following have their own individuality not just being expressed by their words, but their style. I'm not saying that they need to be fashionable, but when you look at them, what really distinguishes them? Maybe this argument can be made that their their personality is so special that they don't need these external factors. However, none of these people say very profound things. They just copy whatever the opposition is saying and they just have to go against it or something like that. Some people just say the most diabolical stuff, but my point is, like, why are we like tied up by these shackles? Like, I have to dress this way, and I'm not even talking about modesty or I don't know all of those stuff. I'm just talking about what really made these rules that we need to show up in this certain way for certain places. When you really think about it, all of this is just made up. And I'm not saying just go out of the norm or something like that, but I feel like people need to take this casually, therefore, because all of this is just made up. No one made these rules. And these are not things that is gonna harm people. So you can't do it. Like, I don't want people to do impulsive things that have consequences that are harmful to you or someone else. Don't ever do that. But I'm saying there are a lot of things that you can be doing, and people give them so much hate, and the hate is more than someone who's actually committed a crime. So, like, that is my fucking point. Like, why are we taking things so seriously? I mean, yes, I have to play by the rules to survive. However, I don't want to be someone who is going to get mad when someone else is expressing themselves and they are out of those shackles. You can do you, and you should also respect someone else not abiding by the rules. I think people are changing their mindsets with time because I see Gen Z to be pioneers of self expression, honestly. If we really have to, like, think about it, if you, like, really put your thought into it, Gen Z is, like, so unique for this because I feel like they, I mean, we are pioneers of self expression, if that makes sense, because we are so extra with the way we dress. I'm not saying that's never been done before. Millennials had their scenes and cultures regarding to a lot of stuff, but again, these people were shoved into the side. It was kind of like a taboo. It's slowly becoming much bigger of a deal. I see people complaining that people are losing their individuality these days, like everyone is doing a plastic surgery and all those things. But what I think is there is a bloom of individuality. It was more of millennials and maybe early Gen Zs, like they kind of, I don't know. I feel like when I was younger, I did see the rise of people just looking the same, getting the same surgeries, dressing the same. However, now, especially for Gen Z, these people, it's like they have realized that the childhood, again, is just a mindset. Like, in terms of the fact that, like, you like toys as a kid, you like to do these things as a kid. Like, why do these things need to be labeled in that way? Like, why do you have to, like, strip yourself off of those things that you liked as a kid? You don't need to. Being an adult is just being mature to your surroundings, being mature to yourself. It does not involve these external things like liking, in quotation, childish things, liking toys, soft toys, or mm, any toy, or liking cartoons, or all those quotations, kiddish things, or something like that. Like, all of this is just so made up, and you need to be rational enough, like what things you can be embracing and what things you still have to abide by the rules with. And that is what adulting is. Like, I feel that's where you should be an adult and realize like what's actually your constraint. Class also plays a huge deal in this because obviously I cannot be expecting someone who's barely making their ends meet to put their mind on the way they would dress or anything like that. But again, if these people are allowed to at least think, I think we have a chance of a much more united and a much more better environment to live in. I can imagine people being more compassionate to each other. However, all of this is again like I'm just thinking way beyond the possibilities because there are not only like class and all these things as factors, but like I feel like this is something that I do ponder on a lot. Like I do want to see a political leader who's like all crazy, probably dressed like Mad Hatter. Like I don't think that shows a deranged person. I think that shows a cool person, someone who's honest. I don't want them to wear all white and or all suited up to pretend like, oh my god, I'm so righteous. If you have to show that externally like that, isn't that dishonesty? I don't know. I just keep thinking about this a lot. And, well, I guess that is it. I don't really want to think more deeper into it and not being able to express it in words anymore. That's that's a wrap. Thank you guys.